Hello everyone. So it's 05, so we'll start with the lecture 2, which is resume preparation. So the agenda for today will be some introduction to resume preparation, and then afterwards we'll have a recruiter sharing session and along with a Q&A session afterwards. So you may be thinking about why should you care about resume? So actually resume screening is actually quite an important part to getting like an online assessment or the interview. So many engineers miss out on getting a shot at an interview because they do not include the relevant information that recruiters are looking for. So it is important to understand the recruiting structure and how recruiting is done. So as you can see, resume is part of step 2, which is preparation to apply. So from this, you also can see that resume is quite important. It's a part of the first stage of application, and then this determines whether you will get an online assessment or you'll get like an interview opportunity. Yep. So I'll be moving on to the next part, which is like the skill set checklist. So for each position, the team manager will provide like a list of specific skill sets that are relevant to the position. So they are grouped into 3 categories like must have, good to have, and special bonus. So must have is like a degree in a relevant technical field, the number of experience in a particular programming language or technology. A good to have category will include like experience or familiarity with secondary languages or technologies we could be required due to some interaction with other components of the project. And a special bonus could be recognized skill sets or experiences which are difficult to come by, and these are not required but useful to have. So candidate which meet the most requirements will get a reply or reached out to. So actually, a lot of recruiters only spend like 10 seconds passing each resume for keywords due to the large number of applicants. As you can see from these days, like within like a day of sending out the job opportunity, there'll be like over 100 people applying on LinkedIn already. So application tracking systems, this is which can pass like resumes automatically are used. This will ensure that your resumes are free of typo errors. So, fresh grads or current undergraduate students that do not have much industry experience, they look out more for soft skills such as attention to detail, initiative, passion, ability to get things done, etc. So note that this only applies that only if you have met the minimum threshold of proficiency or competency in the skill set checklist. So, you might think, do you need like a cover letter? So no cover letter is better than a bad cover letter. So especially if your cover letter is a templated content, and you don't have to write to unless you're asked to. So based on some of my personal experiences, only some companies do require you to have a cover letter, and that's when you should have a cover letter and ensure that it's highlight some of the other experiences from your resume. So an effective cover letter needs to highlight the fit between the job requirements and your skills or experiences. And the bonus would be to tailor the cover letter to the company you're applying to. So for example, maybe you can write that I got interested in Airbnb as a company to work for after using the service last year, and its mission of belonging everywhere resonates with me well. So I think to highlight is that make sure that your cover letter is quite different from the resume so that the recruiters will know have the opportunity for you to like show more of your skill sets or information about you. Yeah. So I'll be sharing about some resume basics. So the length of the resume should, the most important part is to keep it short and sweet. So it's normally kept to 1 page. And if it's more than 1 page, you could represent your experience more succinctly or to format it better. So some of the must-haves in resume, including like name, email, contact number, education details, professional experience, side projects, skills, and street credit like LinkedIn, GitHub, Stack Overflow, etc. And there are some things to exclude from your resume. For example, your profile picture, your address, if you have low cap or GPA, or irrelevant job experiences. So for instance, like if you're applying for a software internship, you should not write about your F&B experiences that are not really relevant to the software internship. Yeah. So you may be thinking, does CAP or GPA matter? So grades in general is just one of the signals that a recruiter is trying to extract from a resume. So if your grades aren't that good, but technical experience makes up for it, it's okay to exclude grades. So remember to benchmark your grades by putting like out of 5.00 or the honor class or both. So to know is that if you're applying for like US companies or applying internationally, US system uses the out of 4 and also classifying the grade matters to recruiters from different countries. So for based on my personal experience, you or like uh people who I know of, most of them do not include their GPA if they are not very high. So and a lot of companies do not really look for, they will not ask you for your GPA. And most importantly is your technical experience in your resume that matters a lot. So you may be thinking of how to order your resume. So most importantly, you should put the most recent experience at the top because the recruiters will read from top to bottom, and sometimes the older experience are less relevant. And also because they will spend a short amount of time to read your resume, they will just maybe take the most recent experience and see whether you have the technical skills to do well in the internship or job. Yeah. So make sure that you're contactable. In your resume, you should add using like proper emails instead of like emails like notemaster69@gmail.com. So this also ensures that the email that you use also you will actively check the email so that you will know that of any opportunities for like OAs or interviews so that you won't miss out on them. Yeah. And then for phone number, do double check for typos and also add country extension just in case the recruiter is not a local one. And if you are planning to upload resume to the internet on the public website, you should not include information like contact number or address. So if web scrapers find it, you might get more scam calls. So you can list the best your contact, either email or phone number. So for listing your skills in your resume, you should list only skills that you are familiar with and also try to balance between signal and noise. So you should add enough information to get the recruiter's attention, but not too spammy. So listing a bunch of technologies you claim you know without actually showing how you work with them is quite pointless. So normally for me, when I write my resume, I will use the STAR method to succinctly write out my points and how I use like the technology in my work. Yeah. So you should customize your skills based on a company. So let's say you're familiar with React.js, Angular, React Native, Flutter, Android Studio, Xcode, Swift, CLI, Storyboards, and you have limited resume space, and you're applying to Google, Meta, and Apple. So what do you think, like what skills will you put in your resume for each company? So actually for Meta, you will use like React.js, React Native, or Google, you use like Angular, Flutter, Android Studio, Apple, Xcode, Swift, or Storyboards. So the point is to find out which skills and or stacks the role that you're applying for requires, and then you try to customize your resume to fit it. So normally, one of the tip that I have is actually like when you are applying for a job, there's normally like a job description, like a JD of like what are some of the skill set they require, and then you can use that as a point for you to tailor your resume for the company that's looking for the specific skill set. So in terms of projects, it'll be like 1 or 2 lines about the project, 2 or 3 lines that are allocated about your role, what technologies you use, what you did, your learning, etc. And this can be like final year projects, research projects, or like projects or personal projects like orbital or stuff. So you should have like ideally 2 to 3 projects that align with your interests or position that you're applying for. And try to avoid using titles such as project for CS2103, as the recruiter outside of NUS will not know what is CS2103. So you should link your projects, awards, or teaching feedback. So if projects that you work on have a deployed link or GitHub repo, so don't be shy to link it and make sure the links to that link so that recruiters who are curious can interact with it. So you may be thinking like, I don't feel like my project is good enough to show off, But that is up to you to decide. But any linked material is live evidence that you're able to code and deploy software. So most of the time you'll be preferable candidate to a nearly equivalent candidate that does not show off their work. So for in terms of layout formatting, you should be consistent. So for example, like August 2011 to June 12th, or like August 2019 to September 2019. And you should use like standard fonts. Also make sure that it's like you use readable font size so that you don't like make it small so small that you can squeeze all the content inside. So that the recruiters can be have an easier time to read it as well. So you should avoid using numbers for dates due to like differences in style for countries. And you should not add symbols to headers to avoid ATS readability issues. So in terms of layout formatting, you're not applying for a design job. You can avoid fancy designs. You could stick to the standard styles. And also PDF is preferred over Word doc. So sometimes there might be some formatting issues for Word document. So you should name a file like first name, last name, and then the resume, the PDF instead of just resume PDF. So you should customize your resume based on your location. So if you're applying to the US and you're Singaporean, state eligibility for the H1B1 visa prominently. And also for non-Singaporeans, figure out if you have like special visas as well. So some overseas company do not bother looking at resume if they aren't reasonably confident that you can eventually get a visa. So you should customize your resume based on location as well. So you can use like US or UK English, and also if the location uses GPA, you can rebase your GPA to be out of 4, and also read through all the nouns that you use and ensure that they can be understood by someone without any context of the Singapore or the anywhere system. So for example, don't just write orbital or CS2040S without context and expect anyone outside anywhere to know what it is. So for some of the common resume makers, we have like Word, Flow CV, Overleaf or LaTeX templates. So there's no best choice. Try and choose the most convenient way for you. But the most common resumes that I've seen are users Word docs. Yeah. Then you can use online tool to test out your resume format. For example, VMod, which we take the CFG 1002. So your online profile also matters a lot. So some recruiters will search for your name, and you should like Google or Facebook yourself to search yourself and remove embarrassing content. So you can like set a social media profile to be private if you frequently upload clubbing photos. So to summary, to set up an ATS-friendly resume template and also fill out your template with well-framed content in a meaningful order, and also optimize your resume with prioritization and keywords, and also test out resume using free tools. And so these are some of the links to some of the guides that you can take a look for writing a good resume. And now I think pass on the time to Jingheng, who will go on with the sharing session. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Alyssa, for the wonderful sharing about resume preparation. Right, so let me go on and talk about the next thing we have, which is the recruiters and hiring managers sharing. Okay, so tonight we have 3 representatives, right, from Mobin, Shopee, and OGP respectively, who have graciously taken the time out of their busy schedules to join us, right? They will be sharing exclusive information about the internship hiring process, resume preparation, and hearing the perspectives of these recruiters will definitely benefit you in some way or another, right? So without further ado, let me just welcome the first speaker from Mobin, right? From Mobin, we have Jian Jie, right? Jian Jie is the co-founder and chief technology officer at Mobin, right? In fact, it's his first and only full-time role, right? He has previously contributed as a software engineering intern at different companies, and he is very passionate about getting more people to build their own startups. He believes that building your own company and creating high-quality jobs is the long-term solution to the current job challenges, right? So let's have Mobin, Jian Jie from Mobin to share with us more, right? Jian Jie, please. Let me stop.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Glad that you made time for today's session. Hold on, let me figure out how to share my screen. It's been a while since I used Zoom. Can you all see?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna really breeze past introduction about me. Today I'm here to share about how to land startup internships. Thanks Jing Han for the introduction. So I'm just gonna I guess mention a little bit more about me. So yeah, I actually graduated like 4 years ago, and like what he mentioned, Marvin is my first and only full-time job. I'm the CTO and co-founder. And why I'm here today is because I actually helped shape up Marvin's hiring process. So I do know quite a bit about like how a startup's hiring process evolves as a company grows. And currently, I'm also the main owner of engineering hire at Marvin. Just to share a bit more about Marvin, we are building a search engine for UI and UX. So you can think of us as like a Pinterest for design. Currently, we are a team of 20 and always growing, and very probably be headquartered in Singapore. And this is us, right? Small team that you can put on a board. So I'm just gonna dive right into the meat of things. There are some obvious facts about startups that might not have some obvious consequences, right? The first fact is that most startups begin unstructured, and what that means is for early startups, hiring decisions are largely made by a small group of people without professional HR experience. So in some ways, all the best practices that like a mature company with like a HR team, you won't see that in like a very early stage startup. And you can kind of lean to that and play into that as well, right? Because they might not have an ATS, for example, right? You can reach out to founders or early hires from these startups, and try to get into their headspace, like, without having to go through like a application page. But there's a bit of nuance there, which I'll share more later. Yeah, and also because startups are unstructured, right? So in some ways, there's no one way to gain internships. Whereas I mean, this is my assumption, but like in larger companies, the processes are more similar, right? So yeah, but to add on, like hiring processes between startups vary a lot based on their maturity, and their level of maturity informs how they are structured and therefore run the recruitment. So what this means is actually it is important to understand how a startup is structured and really play to that. So I'll give a little bit of example of how a startup's journey changes how they hire, right? So suppose we have a linear journey, and of course oversimplifying this, of a startup's team size. Perhaps a startup starts with less than 10 employees. Usually at this stage, they will have no teams, and the founders might do the recruitment themselves, and they will not have any applicant tracking system. So at this stage, startups would the way you reach out to founders is through email, or sometimes how they will even advertise their jobs in the first place is they will just post directly on LinkedIn. They might just have like a Notion document floating around, and that's really it. And then how you apply is probably on the page itself. There will be a link to a Google form, or they ask you to email them directly. So in such cases, if it's cases like email, you can obviously add a bit more personal touch in the email. Something a bit like kind of like a cover letter, but you can make it more personal and really highlight the experiences that are more relevant. And another important fact about startups is that the intention of hiring will be quite different from like a larger company, right? And I'll show in a bit. So in a very early company, when they hire like interns, they're generally hiring them not to convert to full-time eventually, but rather to hire to build stuff. So this is very especially true for very early stage startups, right? As was with the case of Marvin when we first started. We didn't have much funds yet, right? So we hired interns, and then we spent a lot of effort to sort of like to grow interns as a way to compensate them, right? Rather than to offer higher compensation. But as the startup grows to maybe like 10 to 15 employees, you start to see teams forming in the company, although the structure might still not be so complex, right? There's not much hierarchy. But this is when like founders no longer can sort of like have full visibility of like what each team is doing and what are their problems. right? They will not, like for example, in my case right now, I have no way to really understand on the ground, like, okay, what are my engineers feeling? And they will know better, like what are the gaps within the teams, and then they can better inform the hiring decisions. So in such cases, the hiring starts to become like a team level responsibility. And this is when startups start to introduce ATS and introduce a bit more structure. But in such cases, you notice that there's no recruiters involved yet. So in a way, the approach to uh, uh, to setting out, right, can be still have a more technical angle. And then when a company scales beyond like 50 employees, let's say for example, if the like at 50 employees and above, and if the company is expecting to grow 50% in headcount year on year, that's like at least 25 employees per year, right? So there's no way it's possible for the company to continue hiring without like professional recruiter, right? So in such cases, they will hire professional HR. They will definitely have ATS, and the hiring goals sort of like evolve already, right? So in early years when they hire, it will be hiring to build, but as the company grows, they are more for hiring to convert to full time. So in such cases, I would say for more mature companies, actually the way they operate would be more or less similar to like larger companies already. And for the purpose of today's session, or my segment, I'm just going to share about like these two smaller companies. So when companies are smaller and they don't have in-house recruiters, then the only people that are looking at your application are, literally the people who are going to be working with you, right? The teams directly. So they're going to be technical, right? So what they might focus on is they might look directly at line items on a resume and a profile that is specific and exactly what they need for the role. And they will have a deeper understanding of what is required for the role, and they'll look for exactly that. So some examples are like, what are the tools, libraries, and frameworks you use, and how do you use that? Yeah, and the way I look at it, like when I look at the resume, when you write what the frameworks that you use, we have experience, I ask myself, okay, is any of that relevant to what my company is using? Right, it doesn't have to be directly relevant, but it can be somewhat adjacent. And then I'll also look for the level of involvement and ownership. So okay, you mentioned that you use Next.js to build the website, but what is your level of involvement and ownership in there? Like, did you make any technical decisions, and to what extent? Right, these will be signals that sort of like a more technical recruitment team will be looking for. Right, and then we'll also be looking for personal projects, which is actually a really good signal so far. Like, do you have any personal projects that use the technologies that we use? Do you contribute open source? And what's the actual code, right? What's the quality of your work, right? When I'm hiring for someone technical, I want to know like, okay, yeah, the quality of your work is actually there. So sometimes I actually look at GitHub profiles of candidates, right? And also, so technical people are also going to want to know like what's your current skill level. So for example, if you mentioned that okay, you use React, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look around at your GitHub profile and see like, okay, to what extent are you using the React framework properly, right? And I mean, I know that this is like a lot of things, but I'm gonna make it simpler for you. So really, there's just three key pillars, right? So whenever you look at your own profile, right, you should consider like relevance. Is when I'm looking at a profile, I'll ask myself, is the candidate's profile relevant for our role? For example, if I'm hiring for a web developer role and the candidate's experience is all like mobile development, that's obviously not relevant. And the next thing will be affinity, like to what extent is the candidate's profile, okay, maybe the candidate's profile is relevant, but to what extent, right? I want to know how deep is the interest, right? So suppose you have both relevance and affinity, right? Suppose you apply for a role at Mobbin and then you're very interested in web dev. The last important thing is really to create the evidence, right? Like what are the positive, when I view a resume, I will find like positive and negative signals from the candidate indicating the above. So what this means is it's sort of like a generalization of whatever that whatever advice that you might be getting, right? For example, like surfacing relevant experience. What this means is if you are doing something, if you did something that is relevant to the company that you're applying to, then definitely make it like obvious that you did it and you can do it. right? So make sure that when you are doing something relevant, and if you truly are like interested in a particular like topic or technology, like definitely surface it, like show, let your passion show. And yeah, some other practical tips to end off the session, like my segment, I guess. So I surprisingly I get a lot of AI generated and semi looking application. Definitely don't look that. You might think that, oh, you can prompt the model to generate differently, right? But I just see so many of the same kinds of text, and it's quite obvious at this point, even without having to use any tools to sort of like check whether the application is AI generated or not. And even before, LLMs came to the picture, you already see people mass applying, right? This is definitely what you don't want to do, right? What you want to do is to curate your resume for each role and really highlight the things that are as relevant as possible and bring it up to like top. And if you're applying to startups, people like me are gonna snoop around your profiles and look at your GitHub profiles. So curate your public profiles, beyond just, I guess, cleaning up the social media, but actually highlight things that are relevant to, let's say if you're applying for a web dev role, make it show in your profile that you really are interested in web dev, right? In your personal website, in your GitHub profile, surface it, highlight the product's work, and then reduce noise. What I mean by reduce noise is it could be like, when you work on those school projects, and then like you end up like having a lot of repositories on GitHub. Try to when you no longer need them, try to clean that up, tidy them up. In GitHub you can sort of pin your favorite repositories. Like these are stuff that can really surface good work that you've done, especially if like you contribute to open source. Number 4, keep your resumes concise, and again, make sure to highlight relevant experiences and projects relevant to the role itself, right? So in companies, you might have different teams. Not like you don't just look at the company and then say, okay, this company uses Next.js, and then you just highlight Next.js. But in companies, there are different teams. Even for a startup like Morbin, we are quite small, but we already have teams, and we do want to see specificity, right? We want to know that, okay, the candidate is interested in this particular thing, and perhaps it's more relevant for this role instead of that role. Yeah, this is kind of like I'm not sure whether it's still relevant today, but I experienced this myself when I was applying for internships many years ago. What happened was I applied through LinkedIn job board, but then my job application wasn't seen by the recruiter actually. So always apply through the company's job board directly if possible. The reason is because these companies are using ATS, and some of these job boards, they might be scraping the job ads, and then they might not connect directly to ATS. So to play safe, always apply to the company's job board if possible, like a startup or otherwise. Yeah, and I think this is a very important one. Long-term play is really optimized on discovering your interests. Why this is the case? Because like if you look at what I shared earlier, when I look at a candidate's profile, not only do I want to see that this candidate has past relevant experience, but also like to what extent is their interest, right? And the more you do the earlier you discover what you like to do, the earlier you can sort of like build up and start to accumulate this evidence, right? Like contribute to open source and all that. And yeah, that's really it for my segment. If you're interested in exploring our roles in Morbin, you can check out careers.morbin.com. We are always on the lookout for talented individuals, no matter how early they might be in their career. And if you want to find me on internet, you can find me at Twitter at Liao Zhenjie. And yeah, that's it from me.
All right, thank you, Tianjie, for the wonderful sharing. I had a lot of insights, especially about how the structure and hiring processes in startups changes as the company grows bigger. And we also had a lot of insider tricks, such as spinning up GitHub repos, right? Contacting them through the job boards directly. Right, so now let's move on to our next speaker, Alwin from OGP, which is our Open Government Products. Right, so Alwin pursues both coding and recruiting as part of OGP's mission to build tech for the public good. Right, he has worked with banking software systems at one of the leading US investment banks, and you can always find him on GitHub with his open source repos as he enjoys making contributions. Right, you could also find him at the Telegram group Project Intern. Right, he has always made himself available there as well. So without further ado, let me pass the time on to Alwin, who will share more.
Sorry, just having a bit of technical difficulties here, but thanks for having me nonetheless. I'm just going to quickly share my screen and just start presenter view. Cool. So thanks a lot for the introduction, and thanks for having me here. I'm always glad to help out with people in the early stages of my career. So being invited here or repeatedly on a year-by-year basis has always been I've always been considered a privilege to me. Today, I'm just going to add a little bit onto what was spoken about earlier, both by Jianjie as well as Alyssa, and hopefully what I mentioned would go some way in helping you find a role that suits you quickly. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the activities that I do on Project Intern, mostly something that seems to be happening on a yearly occurrence, and just to kind of set the tone and in a relevant way. After that, I'll talk a little bit about what I do as a hiring manager, and I will maybe expand a little bit on some of the challenges I face and why this is relevant to you. I'll then focus on maybe build up on two specific areas, which we may have covered a bit earlier on, but I hope that what I can provide can actually be of use for you to you when you start writing your resume. So right, so let's get into it. So this is something every year in Project Intern, there will always be people asking for help to review their resumes. This is an example from a few years ago in 2022 when I first started getting involved in Project Intern, mostly to represent Open Government Products, my employer. Typically, somebody would kind of post out a request saying, hey, I just wrote my review, not really sure what's going on. Could somebody help me look through and vet my resume so that I can and offer any feedback that might help me improve things. Yeah, that tends to be quite interesting to me. I do have I do have a lot of empathy for university students because I was in that position myself. So I would then put myself out there and say, I'm willing to help. I am a hiring manager now, and whatever I might offer as feedback might be useful to you as you go recruiting. The thing is that Project Intern is a very, very big Telegram group. It's about like 10,000 people who are in that group right now. So you can imagine that when I put a message out there, the requests from other people for resume reviews will keep coming over a long period of time. So that list will keep growing, and it will keep growing and keep growing. So in 2022, it took me maybe about 7 hours to kind of clear through all the requests for resumes, and even the day after, there were even more people asking me to vet their resumes. I do find myself talking about the same points about resumes to multiple people, and even though it's quite satisfying for me to be a small part of their career journeys, it's still doing stuff very similar to what I'm doing at work, close to my bedtime outside of office hours. It's fun, maybe not the right time to have fun. There's always a time and place for everything. So I talked a little bit about work, right? So what exactly am I doing when I'm screening resumes and not either working on developer relations or coding projects, right? So what was presented in the earlier lecture was fairly accurate. I am actually reading lots of CVs in a week, and even if I and the other hiring managers are not doing so, we do have other responsibilities to do. So in that sense, the time period of like maybe tens of seconds to look through a resume is quite accurate. And given the relative volume of applications coming in, it's very easy for decision fatigue to set in. More so if you're applying to, say, a big tech firm, right, or even an investment bank, or perhaps even a local player like Carousel or Grab, right. There's a lot of things to consider for notability, right? There'll be projects, there'll be internships, relevant activities, and so on and so forth, right? And within that very narrow time period, I'm thinking to myself, what do I do? Reject, proceed, KIV? Is this person on the borderline? Do I need to kind of follow up by looking at other indicators that might break break the impasse for my decision making, right? And if if I decide to kind of keep this person on hold, how long am I supposed to be keeping this person on hold? So you can imagine that it's quite it can be quite tiring and quite exhausting to kind of look at so many people, right? So maybe from that you can actually infer that there is one thing that you need to do. You do need to stand out to the hiring managers. That's should be the rule of thumb that you go with when you are when you are applying to companies and when you are writing your resume, right? Given that hiring managers will have not that long a period of time to look at your profile, pack in as much information as possible with the limited 1 page or so that you have on your resume. The more that you can actually give to the recruiter, the quicker and the better a decision they can actually make about whether they should be proceeding with you. So with that in mind, let's kind of talk a little bit of about how you can do that. Layout, I think on top of what has been discussed earlier, I would say try to move the more interesting parts of your resume up front. I know there might be some recommendations about, oh, you have to put your educational background first, or you should put your professional experience first, and so on and so forth. I would say it varies from person to person. For some people, it may very well be that your professional experience may be the most prominent thing. I've seen people who are merely in year 2 of university, for example, who already have 4 internships under their belt. I think that's particularly notable. Yet other people might actually be very active in the tech for good space. Maybe they are prominent members of the Better SG organization, right? That's notable too. Maybe more so than the internships that a person might be participating in. So it varies lah. So it could be it could very well be your academic work, your professional experience, but it could also be your community participation or the contributions you're making to open source and so on. Generally speaking, by the time the person is halfway through reading your resume, they probably have like an 80%, 90% idea of who you are, where your abilities stand. Maybe a brief note about cover letters. I think that's been covered previously. Generally speaking, I would do the applicant the honor of reading the cover letter. If it was written badly, I would just move on. I wouldn't necessarily penalize you for that. I would be looking for new information though, so don't repeat what you have in the resume. Instead, what you can do is to talk about information that I may not otherwise get. OGP has routinely asks the question, what is a public good problem that you want to work on, and why? That the cover letter might be a good opportunity for you to kind of describe something that you might feel very strongly about, right? Or a problem that you've gotten to know so well that that you can kind of know the ins and outs of that problem, right? And that's something you can't necessarily put in the resume, but would be a good fit for the cover letter. The other thing I kind of want to like people to think about is how they describe their work, right? Typically, these should give some indication of what you've learned as a software engineer, how far you've come, how you've made things better where you are. So I think in particular, I want to point out that technical work is a lot more than just saying I use such and such a framework to build such and such an application. I mean, unless that framework is particularly unusual or interesting, like say maybe a multicast message bus or something to that effect, such lines don't typically help you differentiate yourself from like other applicants who are likely to have done similar. I mean, think about how many people use React these days to build a front end. Instead, I would suggest trying to describe exactly how you've kind of put something together, what technical decisions you've made, and what lessons you may have learned along the way when you're so that a potential hiring manager could look at that and say, okay, I know you've been exposed to this, you've kind of picked up some experience along the way, and I know you've grown this much as an engineer. So maybe, for instance, say you have had to deal with Redux for state management in your front-end application, and you realize that that's getting a bit long in the tooth, it's getting a bit dated. So you start investigating other state management frameworks that would fit with React, and then assess the pros and cons and make a judgment call as to which one you should be going, the team should be going with going forward. That's useful information, and that's something that would certainly raise your profile to a potential hiring manager. So being able to articulate these points very concisely to a hiring manager will also show how well you can actually convey information and to a hiring manager. And these could things that be brought up during an interview as well. So spend a fair amount of time like carefully thinking, revisiting what you've done at work and distilling it in a very clear, concise manner. It's a very time-consuming exercise, but I think it's a very worthwhile exercise to have. I realize I'm a little bit over time, so I'll quickly breeze through this last slide. I think many of you may be applying without that much experience, right? Maybe maybe some of you might be just starting out in your career journey, and you don't really have that much to show, and you realize that you might be applying and going up against candidates who may have significantly more experience. What do you do? I think I think we've kind of covered off-work activities such as using GitHub and like practicing lead code and so on and so forth. I guess the thing I want to add to this discussion would be how much value does this bring to you? How much more information would you give the hiring manager as a result of this? And would this be useful, right? And would this be elicit very interesting conversations that you may want to have with the hiring manager during the rest of the assessment process? Quite often, I've had to look at GitHub profiles as a tiebreaker indicator when I'm looking at a CV and I'm not entirely sure where this person may stand to me. So good to have, I would say, and potentially quite useful when I'm trying to figure out what I should be doing with this candidate. Maybe one particular suggestion with regards to this, you may want to learn more about the firm that you're applying to, and in particular the problems they work on. So a case in point might be if you want to get into high frequency trading, for instance, you may want to know how to build an order manager and to do so in a low level language so that you can actually hit certain performance requirements. That might be something that would be particularly notable to the hiring manager, because they would say to themselves, okay, well, this candidate may not have had real world exposure to financial trading, but he or she does have some motivation to understand what the problems are and to expose themselves to the potential technical challenges that they may they may encounter during the job. So hopefully all this is useful information. And I think that's all I have to offer at this point. Once again, thanks for having me. And if you want to know more about who I work for and what I do day to day, you can take this during the Q&A. Thanks again.
Right. Thank you, Alwin from OGP. All right, so I think we have learned a lot about the insights as a hiring manager, all right, what they look out for. And it's not just about seeing what you have used, but also how and why, as well as the lessons learned, right? So I will send a link to the Project Intern Telegram group now, right, in the chat. So y'all may join if you're not inside already, right? We have 11,000 members inside, right? Okay, so let me share my screen. Right, so thank you, Alwin. Right, so this was a slide that I missed out. All right, next we have Shi Hua from Shopee. Right, so Shi Hua is an engineering and product recruiter. She does campus recruitment for Shopee. Right, so she has previously held roles as talent engagement specialist at Google, as well as at Aspire. Right, as a passionate HR professional with 4 years of experience in recruitment and ops, right, she is skilled in areas such as sourcing top talent and conducting interviews. Right, outside of recruiting, she enjoys watching movies, anime, traveling, and exercising, which I'm sure many of us do. Okay, so without further ado, let us invite Shi Hua.
Okay, hello everyone. I guess it's a good night, but we're all still here. So thank you guys for staying on. So I'll just quickly share my slides. Yeah, I just want to check if you guys are able to see it.
Yes, we can see.
Yeah, okay, all's good, right? Okay, yeah, thank you for introducing me. So yeah, I'm from Shopee. So I'm currently an engineering and product recruiter at Shopee. So I've been in the HR space for about 4 years, done many interviews and things like that. So today I'll be sharing with you some like technical interview tips. So but first of all, let me just quickly share with you guys Shopee's recruitment process. So for us, like when you apply for a role, you can apply it via like LinkedIn or our careers page, and then we will like inform you if you're shortlisted. And then depending on the role or the team that you're applying to, there might be like online assessments and that might not be. So the recruiter will let you know. Yeah, then usually after those online assessments, then there will be the technical interviews. So usually like 2 to 3 rounds, and then you can expect like live coding questions, some CS fundamental questions, and also like system design questions as well. And then once you have made it through all those technical interviews, then great job. You will be getting to the final round, which is actually like a HR call where the recruiter will ask you some like culture fit questions and then also walk you through like the next steps. So so let's say if you're interested to join Shopee as an intern or graduate next time. So there are 3 things that Shopee looks out for. So culture fit. So being like in the e-commerce space, it's a very dynamic environment. So we're looking for people who's able to like be adaptable and a fast learner, and of course self-driven as well. And then of course being interested in the industry. And then some soft skills that we're looking out for, it's like the usual like problem solving skills, communication skills, being like a good team player, and then like project management skills as well. So technical skills is where you guys might be keen in. So like definitely familiarity in understanding like all your various programming languages, being very strong in your CS fundamentals, system design, which is all pretty important here at Shopee. It's like basically what people ask you during the interviews. And then also having like strong analytical skills, and also like let's say if you're keen in like data science, AI, algorithm stuff, that's where you need to have like some knowledge in, for example, NLP, computer vision, deep learning, LLM, etc. So some how do you excel in these interviews? So that's so first of all, definitely understanding like the whole process, right, which I've basically shared with you guys. And then always ask the recruiters as well, like if you're not too sure about like what's the process like. I think having a good understanding of the process will help you to better prepare for interviews. And then also like being proactive in your research to the role that you're applying for, understanding the company, and then obviously understanding like the prerequisite to the technical skills, and then also like practice as much as you can. I think always like practice your technical skills in terms of like your coding, because there's always going to be live coding rounds in our interviews at Shopee. So yeah, I think usually I would recommend like students to do like about maybe 10 to 20 lead code questions per day on medium to hard level. I mean, that's of course like when you're more free lah. But then during exam period, then of course like pace yourself. Exams are more important. Yeah. So and then of course number 3 is always prepare like examples to showcase your strengths. I think that's very important. So being able to showcase like the projects that you have done or like relevant internships you have done, the interviewers they're always very keen to hear those things like. And then of course always tailor them to like the specific role that you're applying for, and avoid being like too vague about it, because sometimes our interviewers they will ask like details as well, and to see whether you really understood the project that you have done. Yeah. And then some other tips as well on how to prepare. So definitely have a basic understanding of the role. So for example, if you're going to apply to a back-end role, and then understand like what back-end does, right? And then I think for us at Shopee, distributed system is a very popular tested question. So of course also understand like what is that. Yeah. And then I think always like ask people online, I'm sure like if you have friends who have interned there before, or if you have seniors who work at Shopee, you can ask them about their experience as well. And then also read up on like, what is Shopee like doing recently in the market, what are some of like e-commerce trends, or what are some like features that they're working on. And then number two is always to review like your fundamentals of computer science. So like I said, we are very heavy on CS fundamentals, especially for fresh grads. So it's always very important for you to revise these things. I believe they are taught in uni in one of like the modules and stuff lah. So don't throw away your notes after the exam because they might serve you useful, especially when you go for interviews. Yeah, because I think a lot of us always feel like, uni, these things taught in school is like not important. Like we just need to use it for exams. But actually, they might be really helpful when you go for interviews lah. Yeah, so they will come back to serve you in the most unexpected ways. Yep, so don't throw away your notes. And then of course, like always, like I said, practice your LeetCode. There's a lot of platform, where you can practice. And then I think not just coding practices also, you can always ask people to do like mock interviews for you and things like that. So practice is also very important. Yeah, so like I said, take good advantages of like your resources lah. So obviously number one is like your uni notes, and then I think like software engineering skills. I think I'm not sure if you all still teach this in school, CS 2003T. Yeah, I think that's a mod, and then like those information stored in that mod is very important also. Yeah, and then like all the online platforms that you have, always to like follow along during like those trainings, or and then the things on like, architecture and design, like infrastructure, middlewares, database, this kind of thing. If you're interested into like more of those like back-end DevOps kind of roles, that will be really important as well. Yeah, and then do as many side projects as you can, and hackathons as well over the years. I think that's a very good indicator of your passion towards the role. I think especially for like software engineering, it's a very, very competitive market out there. So imagine like if you're an interviewer and then you don't see somebody like doing like their own projects. I mean, I'm sure like it doesn't make the person feel very like competitive, right? So always like try to do some projects on your own, or join some hackathons. Yeah, and then of course like all the practice tools and platforms I've mentioned as well. And then some other like interview tips, as I mentioned just now, so like have more interview practices, like not only just brush up on like your technical skills, but interview skills are very important too. So for example, like how to answer questions in the STAR method, or PEL method. Yeah, because I think your skills in actually like during the interview, like executing an interview is just as important as how as your actual job skills. So it needs practice also. So can get like mock interview practices from your friends, or like I think now you can even use like AI platforms to do mock interviews. You just need to write like a really good prompt onto like ChatGPT and then ask for feedback, Yeah, so I think I'm sure you guys know how to use ChatGPT, so I think can leverage that as well. And then there's also like mock interview platforms like interviewing.io, Prep, Gainlow, all this kind of stuff. But I think some of them might need to pay. So maybe ChatGPT will be the best bet, and also asking your friends or seniors. And then and then I think another thing that people don't talk enough about, I feel, is like what to do, right, when like you get stuck during the interview. Like for example, the interviewer asks you a question, and then you find it difficult to answer. So I guess like sometimes think of it as like Flappy Bird also, like Flappy Bird looks very easy, but then it's actually quite hard to play. So I guess it comes to like interview, sometimes the question like, but then actually you don't really know how to answer it. So I think for us, right, in Shopee, sometimes we ask these kind of questions, right? It's not really to I guess like stress you out or really find out the right answer. It's really more to find out about like how do you cope with like sudden like challenges, or like how do you react to stress. Yeah, so it's very important for you to not be defensive or angry, or like I mean, we have heard people say, oh, actually we can just check GPT. Please don't say that during the interview. Yeah, so I think most importantly is like stay calm if you face a question that you don't know how to answer. And staying calm, as easy as it sounds, most people actually fail there. So yeah, and then I think always acknowledge the gap, acknowledge the gap that actually you're not very sure. but then I think express that willingness to learn, you know, oh, I'm not too sure about this, but this is maybe like some basic things I know. Could you help me to like also help me to understand? I think you can always bring the question back to them and ask them to teach you. Think of the interview, think of the interview as a way for you to also learn things. Yeah, so it's not just an assessment to test you, but it's also an opportunity for you to learn. So like explore the problem, rephrase the questions that they ask, or need to ask even more clarifying questions, and then like just double check with the interviewer if that's what you're understanding. Yeah, so I think so relate it to like something So for example, like you don't really know how to use Kafka as a queue, but then like generally how queues work. So like there's probably like, so you can just like, phrase it around that kind of things, and you can ask the interviewer. Yeah. And then other tips would be showing your interest, like always remember to show like interest during the interview. And how can you do that? I think you can do that by building rapport with the interviewer. So how do you build rapport with interviewers? So, when you go in an interview, you can ask them like, oh, hello, how's your day? Things like that. Or you can always like maintain eye contact. So I think just like be genuine and like respectful, humble and approachable during the interview. Yeah, and then like here and there maybe I can try to smile also lah. Because I think like especially during virtual interview, it's very easy for us to look a bit dead sometimes. Especially if you're in the middle of like doing like questions and stuff, and then you get a bit stressed. Yeah, but then like, I think just like look a bit happier, look interested to be there. Yeah, and then of course like always being like open and vulnerable. So if you don't know, then just say you don't know, which leads me to the next point, be transparent. And it's completely okay that you don't know everything. I mean, even I also don't know everything. So I think you can just like be really honest, because our interviewers, they're actually trained to like spot and uncover fluff. So if you're going to try to fluff something, then I recommend you not to do it, because our interviewers have done many interviews in their life, and it's very easily to spot who is trying to just fluff them and who is being genuine lah. So like don't try to like I guess like give more than you can answer, and then also don't exaggerate your credits from past projects. So because you don't want to leave like so you can think of it like securing a system, right? You don't want to like leave too much unnecessary ports open to be attacked. Yeah, so in that sense, yeah. And then also like always ask questions. As I said, think of it as a session where you also get to learn things. So always ask them questions. So you can prepare like some questions to sort of like ask them about what is like the tech stack that the company is using, for example. I'm not too sure if you can find that online about Shopee, but yeah, these are the things that you can always ask. Or you can ask them about like the projects that Shopee is doing. What are some like new features across like in the past like 6 months, have they released anything like interesting? You can always ask them that. I'm sure like the interviewers, they're very happy to share. I think sometimes like maybe like for us like a computer like computer science students, they feel a bit like hard to relate to them, or like build a personal rapport. But I think when it comes to technical things, everybody is a bit more excited. So you can talk a bit more about these technical things with like the interviewers as well. Yeah. And then I guess I'm just going to leave a photo here for you guys to like, you can take a screenshot or anything. I'll give you 10 seconds. I guess this pretty much summarizes what I've just mentioned. Yeah, so you can have 10 seconds to take a quick screenshot of this so that you will not forget what I've said. Okay, I hope everybody took their screenshot, because I'll be moving to the next slide. So yeah, these are some of the opportunities that we have at Shopee. So like we have backend engineer, front-end engineer, algorithm engineer, QA engineer, and like so on and so forth. And then if let's say you're not very interested in the super technical things, we also have like technical project or product managers, like if you're trying to pivot. So and they're all open for like fresh grad opportunities. So you can always like visit our career page to find out more. So to help you, I've actually gotten a QR code. So if you're interested to like see what's on our career site, you can just like scan the QR code or take a picture and scan it later. Yep. And then I guess like last but not least, stay connected with us on Shopee. There's like we're across all the different platforms. And then if you're interested to connect with me, you can also always look me up on LinkedIn as well. And then, yeah, that's all from me. And I hope that you guys have learned something from the tips and preparation notes that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Shihua, for the very insightful process that Shopee interview process, right? So it's important to practice our lead code. That's why we have our weekly homework of 6 out of 7 questions for you all as well. Okay, so it's also important to take note of our behavior during interviews and perhaps leverage AI tools like what Shihua has said, right, to practice. Right, so now we'll be moving on to our Q&A session, right? So for students who are interested in asking the speakers questions, you all could use the Q&A function in the Zoom meeting to ask your questions. But while waiting for questions to roll in, right, I actually have a question, right, just to start and get the ball rolling. Right, so 2 of our speakers, Jianjie and Shihua, has mentioned about generative AI, use of AI, whether is it for resume writing or for the practice, right? So earlier today, very interestingly and coincidentally, Straits Times released an article about writing your resume with Gen AI. So I would like to ask the speakers, maybe starting off from Jianjie, since he said that he has seen a lot of AI written resumes, right? So what is bad about using, or what is bad or good about using AI to write your resumes, and why is that the case, right?
Right. Yeah, I think it's fine to use AI. Nothing wrong with that. But I think it looks very sloppy when you use AI to do everything, which is what I see in I would say a lot, but there's a sizable amount of candidates, and they don't even bother tweaking the prompt. It's literally, I see the same kinds of phrases and words used. Yeah, and you obviously don't want to come across as sloppy, right? Because like what the rest is shared, we only look at your resume and your application for like 10 to 20 seconds, and then it's the next candidate already. And when we see something that looks AI generated, we are not going to be very forgiving.
Okay, all right, thank you, Jianjie. Shihua, do you want to add to the answer?
Yeah, I think like using AI to practice for interviews is fine, but I think like what Jinjie said, don't use it to write your resumes, because like it obviously like AI tend to exaggerate a bit more in like the things that we do, right? So and then imagine you're gonna have your resume written by AI, and then you go for an interview, and then the interviewer asks you, oh, so you did this at your internship, for example, and then you're not even able to like answer in details or something, because obviously you didn't write that resume, then it's pretty obvious, right? So I think, like I mentioned, our interviewers, they are trained to like spot and uncover fluff. So please don't write more than you can answer, and don't exaggerate anything from the past. Yeah, because it's very obvious to the interviewers during the interview. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Shihua. Yeah. So we have quite a lot of questions are rolling in already. So let me just choose one. For Alvin, do you have anything to add for the previous question?
Yeah, actually, I think I do. I think my biggest concern about the use of AI in resume writing mostly stems on it masking the person's actual communicating ability. I kind of touched a bit on how hiring managers might use this as an indicator to convey of the applicant's ability to convey information. If they're very reliant on say ChatGPT to kind of phrase things, maybe somebody who's new to the screening process might be like, oh, okay, well, maybe this person isn't doing too badly, and then they tend to as Shihua mentions, find out where the person truly stands during the interview process. It's a bit annoying because it kind of it ends up wasting everybody's time. For the more seasoned hiring managers, it tends to be there tends to be a pattern that we can recognize after a while for AI generated resumes. So after a while, we kind of like, oh, okay, well, this person is using AI to kind of write his or her resume. I guess I cannot use I cannot use that as a means to determine the person's ability to communicate, which again doesn't do you any justice, lah. So I think bottom line is, if you must use it very sparingly. We do want to see you as a human and not somebody who's hiding behind tools. So yeah, show me what you have, lah.
Right. Thank you, Alvin. Okay, so we have quite a few questions, so let me just choose one. All right, so this person asked, right, do you have some recommendations on what projects are most relevant that we should work on over the summer? Right, some projects that I could think of for NUS students in year one would be the Orbital project, but apart from Orbital, we could also have, say, for example, research project, open source contributions, hackathons, and so on. There are many, many projects. So which one is the best for a year one student, and which one perhaps carries most weight? Perhaps, Alvin, you might like to start
Yeah,
first.
I was hoping you would kind of ask me actually. I'll add to the list. I believe there's still CVWO, Computing for Voluntary Welfare Organizations, that Ben Leong does for NUS students. So it really depends on who you're applying to and how well aligned it is to as Alyssa says, your own personal interest as well as its relevance to the job scope lah. So for hiring managers and open government products, because we build tech for the public good, we will be looking out for people who have expressed a genuine interest in those things. So like a CVWO project would probably be some indication that you have an interest in public good. Maybe you might be personally persuaded as you go through that project and actually talk to the VWOs on a day-to-day basis. That will be something I'm looking out for. Other things, maybe another example about this that doesn't involve us would be like, say, if you're trying to apply for the finance sector and you want to understand low latency problems better, a hiring manager there would probably be browsing through your GitHub to see what you've been doing in order to better understand, say, concurrency problems or problems that or lock-free data structures for instance. So that's kind of how I feel about that. Yeah.
Thank you, Alvin. That's very insightful. What about Xianjie? Do you have anything to add? Because I think projects are a really important part of the resumes that startups are looking for as well.
Yeah. Actually, I really think CVW is a great idea. But on top of that, I think open source is really a underlooked area. You know, when you work on very reputable big open source projects, you are literally like the reviewers will be from big tech. Right? For example, if you contribute to React code base, the reviewers are going to be from like Meta, you know, it's like people sleep on this. And you get to see the process of how like a really big project, how you get a change through a really big project. And also you get to experience how to gain context and solve specific problems within a really large project, right? Which is no small feat. Apart from that, I would say this is really hard to, I would say it's not really ideal to optimize like, okay, what I should do for this summer to land jobs. Because I think, the more sustainable long-term play is really go and figure out what you like and don't like. Experiment with a wide breadth of things. And then when you find something you like, just follow and chase chase the rainbow of sorts and really just double down on that. And then before you know it, you will have like all these projects and evidence of depth in these areas.
I just want to riff on a point that Xianjie made about open source. I know at least one hiring manager whose interview process is make an open open pull request to an open source project. In that particular instance, I ended up becoming the unwitting interviewer just by virtue of being the maintainer for that open source project. So yeah.
Oh yeah, NUS mods as well, right? You can contribute to that.
It's very interesting. Right. What about Shuhan? Are you looking out for projects in the resumes as well? And which type of project do you recommend for year one students?
For me, it's more of like relevance to the role, because for us at Shopee, we hire very like specific to the functions, right? So like you guys saw just now, we have like back end, front end, algorithm. So I think for us, like what we are looking out for is more on like relevance. Yeah. So you can do like as many as projects as you want, but they're gonna, if like, let's say if they're all over the place, like different kinds, which is no problem also, but it's just for us, like at Shopee, we just want something towards more of like relevance. So we have seen people who have no like they have zero ML internship experience, but they did a lot of like ML projects, and then we actually hired them as an intern. Yeah. So I think it's for us, it's really more of like relevance. So I think like if you guys are looking to do, then maybe you can think about like, oh, what is something that is, you know, maybe more towards like your interests. Yeah, then that will help.
Okay, all right, thank you, Suha. Right, so talking about relevance, I think we have another question about relevance. Let me just answer like, right, so this person is currently doing his first intern and product management intern in a cryptocurrency trading app, but it's not technical at all, so he might think that it's not relevant. So how would this experience help me to have my technical intern? So perhaps Elwin, would you like to comment on this?
Okay, this one I was hoping you would kind of ask somebody else first. I would say that I would start by saying that there is a real severe lack of product managers in, at least in Singapore's workforce, who are truly technical. And I think that means that any technical expertise that that you can carry as a product manager would actually see you through a very long way. That's partly because you will then know what your engineers are trying to communicate to you, and then you can push back at them if you think they and if you think you should be calling their bluff. But also you can push back against your potential stakeholders, right? If they are asking for something that might be not practical to implement. So in short, I think by all means you should continue to try to brush up on your technical proficiencies, because that goes a long way into informing some of the product calls that you will have to make as you embark on a product manager career. Good question though.
All right, would Suha or Qinjie like to add to this question?
Okay. Maybe I'd like to just add that, in the space of tech, there's a lot of very tech adjacent role, including tech sales. So I would say don't completely shut off close the door on that as well. But going back to, if your concern is really you want to go back to a more technical role, don't let that one internship experience stop you from continuing to be technical. You have one internship experience, that's better than none at all. So honestly, the same kind of like rule applies. In fact, it will be great if you can bring up your interview that, let's say for example, you discover that you're truly interested in a technical, going technically deep. Then it will be great if you could bring that up during the interviews, that although you did try like a PM role, but you do actually find yourself wanting to go back to to doing something technical, which is a signal that, okay, this candidate tried something else and is more firm on the decision on wanting to be technical, which is also a signal. Not to say it's like conclusive or anything, but it is a signal. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think just also adding on very quickly is like, also let's say if you're already in that position, I think can always like speak to the engineers more in the company. So it sort of like also help you to really like understand like more technical things, right? Rather than just like keeping to your scope. Yeah, so I think like that, like in that case, then next time when you go for interviews, you say, oh, although I did a PM role, but actually I was more interested in the technical aspects, which I actually spoke to a lot of the engineers, for example, and then you try to understand and things like that. So I think that will also help you to also like build up on like your technical skills-ish.
Okay, all right, thank you. Right, so we have a few questions about GPA, honors, as well as the modules taken in school. So let me try to click this. Right. So does GPA and honors matter much? Also, in another question, a student asked if the modules taken in school is relevant. If a relevant module is not taken in school, but he has borrowed notes from another student and read up on it, even though it's not officially on his transcript, is it still good? Right. So these are the questions asked.
Should I go first?
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so I think there are two things to unpack here. I'll tackle the modules one first. I think it's very commendable that you're actually interested in the subject matter, so much so that you are going out of your way to borrow somebody else's notes. Doesn't really have to appear in your transcript. Maybe in fact, I think in my experience, like vetting full-timers, entry-level full-timers and interns, I've not really paid that close attention to a person's transcripts. When I'm doing the interview, if a relevant module comes up, in conversation, then yeah, that's then we'll probably just drill into that lah. So I think it's more important that you understand the subject matter well, then you actually have the grades for it lah. As to whether GPA and honors matter much, I think the whole point of university is to not just learn this subject matter, but also to shape how you think and reason about things as you go out into the workforce lah. So in that sense, yeah, sure, GPA and honors might give me some indication of that, but it's not the end all and be all lah. I think I would attach more a fair amount of weight to your work experience, what you're doing outside of things, and maybe even some of like your own pursuits in other academic pursuits that may not be reflected in your GPA and honors lah. If you're hiding it, I'll just assume that you don't have anything to shout about lah. But I wouldn't necessarily discount you as a candidate lah.
Right, thank you. About Shihua or Qianqie? Right.
Yeah, I would say I barely look at the transcript, although I use it to verify the candidate did take the certain courses. Okay, it's okay, it really depends. If I'm hiring for like a concurrent and parallel programming role, then I will look, obviously these kinds of knowledge is quite hard to self-learn outside of university. So in such cases, then I would want to know that, okay, did this person take like CS4231, for example, or any of the concurrent parallel algorithm mods. But apart from that, I would say, yeah, I would say grades, I would say they don't matter. I would say, like, if I'm looking for, let's say if when I'm going through, after I talk to the candidate, I feel that, okay, these candidates might not pass the requirements in terms of being able to handle algorithm work, at work, then I might then that's only the situation where I might look at the transcript and see, okay, and fact check, okay, I might have this gut feeling, is that true? Yeah, but even so, we might still think to ourselves, okay, maybe this candidate deserves a chance, let's put this candidate through the technical round and then we'll see for ourselves. So no hard and fast rule, is really just a signal, and really there's a lot more signals, right? Like your experience, your projects, how passionate you are about whatever that we're hiring for. Yeah.
Thank you. Sure.
For me, I think definitely grades aren't everything. But honestly, at today's day and age, right, it's always better to have good grades. Okay, I think it's just because, like, I think at the current state where the market is very, very competitive. So it definitely plays a part, right, for you to maybe get to be more noticed. Yeah. So I definitely do think that, as much as I do agree with like all of us that, grades doesn't really matter. It's not the end of the world if I don't have good grades. But I do encourage you guys to always just study and always like place emphasis on your exams and because ultimately it is there to help you. Yeah. Although it's not the end of the world if you don't have it. Yeah. So I'm just putting it out there. It is going to be great if you have good grades. It's going to make your life a lot easier. I'm not going to lie. But if you don't have it, it's fine. Like, it's not the end of the world. You can always like, there's always like, I think like both Jin and Owen shared, like your sometimes you're looking about like how do you like do the job, that's more important. So yeah, just putting it out there for perspective, because we don't want to also paint a picture where it's fine, no need to study, uni is useless. We don't want to paint that picture, right? We want to still let you know that uni is still important. Studies are still important. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we are running out of time, but let's just quickly finish up one or two more questions. So for this question, right, the student asked if proper software engineering principles develops interests recruiters more, or is it like AI, big words, right? Which of these interests recruiters more? So perhaps Alvin, would you like to start first?
Is it because my name starts with an A that and we are going alphabetically? No, I'm just messing with you. I am quite ambivalent about it, frankly. I suppose if you were kind of if you're gonna like place two resumes in front of me and one has been pretty been very regular in their software engineering discipline practice, then sure, I might lean towards that. But that's only because, like, as an employer, we will we do quite a fair bit of software engineering work and not necessarily AI centric software engineering work. It might be a completely different story if, say, you're applying for the pair team within OGP, and that's just one aspect of like what I look out for when evaluating resumes.
Thank you. Qianjie or Shihua, would you like to add on?
Yeah, I mean,
Qianjie.
actually, it's quite simple. We we are interested in whichever candidate can do the job, and basically just look at the job description. Usually it contains 80% of 80 to maybe even 100% of like what we require for the role. If the role doesn't require AI, then why would we hire someone focus on AI on that? Yeah, if you're hiring for a software engineer, then yeah, we can look for a software engineer.
All right. Okay, so let's move on to our last question. I'm sorry I'm not able to select all the questions because there are too many, but this is quite an interesting question. I think I may like network stuff. What can I do to advance myself in that field? But network could be computer networks or, let's say, networking, right? So who would like to take this question?
For Shopee, we actually have quite a lot of roles that's related to like network. So more of like network reliability engineers kind of thing. So if that's like of your interest, then I think for us, like, we look out for people. I think they did mention, okay, because I'm not the most technical person also, so forgive me if I'm saying weird things that doesn't make sense. But from what my understanding from hiring managers, they also see like whether maybe if you got take time to do like CCNA, yeah, these kind of things for us, like the network that we are doing at Shopee. So that is something that maybe if you're interested in that, could look up into. Yeah. And then we do have like other like network related questions as well. But I'm not exactly like sure if they are related to network, like TCP, these kind of things. Yeah. So these are the common terms that I've seen. So if you're interested in network,
Okay.
those are important terms to take note of and read up.
How about networking with hiring managers, with recruiters like you?
Oh, okay, that network. I guess like I can connect with them on like LinkedIn, like reach out to us if you always like ask questions on LinkedIn. Usually like they're all very friendly people. Yeah, especially so hiring managers, it's a bit harder for like at least for Shopee, it's a bit harder for the candidates to like reach out to because they wouldn't know. But I think don't be afraid to, like, if you maybe just Google like somebody's name or something, and then like then you just want to talk to them. I think just be nice and all. I think usually people will reply you lah. And come for our events if you want to network with us.
Right. Qianjie, anything to add?
Yeah, I think interestingly for startup founders, it varies depending on, okay, maybe let me talk about like networking in terms of like meeting people, right? I think for myself and actually most Bay Area startup founders, SF founders, we are like chronically online on Twitter, and that's kind of where you'll find us. And it's amazing, right? Like social networks have this ability to create a bubble. So like if you just tweet technical stuff that is interesting, you go viral, you might just end up in our orbit. Who knows? Yeah. And the internet is a wonderful place. You can get introduced to people. Like you could just, for example, if you have an internship in SF, you're one of those lucky ones, and then you just tweet, "I'm going to SF for internship. Cool. Anybody interesting I should meet." You'll be surprised that the kind of generosity people have for their time, and you get to meet really interesting people. And also definitely tweet like your cool projects that you're working on, for sure. I'm not sure if you want me to talk about like I guess like networking infrastructure. Is it?
I think that's the slightly less interesting one. All right, let's move on to Elwin.
I would actually dissent and say that the networking, the actual technical networking stuff is actually quite interesting. But it's a whole rabbit hole to dive into, and I think I kind of am mindful of time. The entry points that I know to kind of get into that particular topic would be the Google and engineering blog, as well as Martin Thompson's blog on mechanical sympathy. They do quite low level data structures and network and latency stuff there, so you can kind of go read through those. The Linux kernel mailing list, if you really are that hardcore, and maybe the Phoronix, which is a publication that kind of covers operating system development and related low level stuff. But we're going to talk about like networking, as in building communities. Aside from what Jianjie and Shuhua have kind of mentioned, the Singapore tech event scene is actually quite vibrant and very volunteer driven. So there is this sense of community amongst everybody here. Jianjie is kind of nodding. I think that's partly because we've kind of we may or may not have crossed paths at the various events. So Junior Developers Singapore would be a nice entry point. NUS Hackers and the evenings that they kind of share is also another interesting entry point for if you want to kind of meet other like-minded people and maybe build your confidence in the public space lah. And then from there you can kind of see how you can engage and have conversations with potential hiring managers and all that lah. Yeah, I think I've said a lot. Devsgowhere.com if you want to follow the various tech events that are happening in Singapore. It's a fairly new development, courtesy of the people who kind of bring you Junior Developers Singapore. But if you want more information, just find me on the Project Intern Telegram group lah.
All right, thank you, Alvin. Okay, so we have come to the end of our Q&A sessions. Could we have concluding thoughts and advice from each speaker, just a quick one to round up this session? Starting from perhaps Alvin, since you...
Okay, alphabetical order it is then. I think looking back at my own career in tech, it is going to be a long journey. Sometimes it can be a little bit stressful, especially since there is a lot of things to learn, and the amount of things that you learn would just change every day lah. I mean, one moment I was working on Java and C# and various janky JavaScript frameworks, and then suddenly I'm now working in a purely web shop lah. So you can imagine how much things have changed in the space of the 18 years lah. Don't be brave. Continue to be curious about the things around you. At some point in time, you will realize that the more things change, the more things will stay the same. You will still have the same principles govern, whatever happens to be the cool framework of the day. Once you understand that, then things will be a lot less scary as a tech professional.
Thank you.
What Alvin shared really rings true. Back in the PHP days, we have application logic. We have server-side rendering, and now we move to client-side rendering. Now we're swinging back to server-side rendering. It's almost like the industry is just swinging back and forth. So yeah, like what Alvin said, really just follow your curiosity, and if you can't, I think just two things. The first is that since you're so early in your career, like if I could do this all over again, I'll really optimize myself for the breadth of experience to figure out what I don't like. It's easier to learn what you don't like than to go and figure out okay, what exactly is my thing, right? And then second is if you find it hard to still learn internships, my advice is really to go out there and create value for the world. It's like there's a lot of problems in the real world that can be solved, even with just a little bit of software engineering skills. It can be as small as reminder apps, or figure out how to help old folks remember to take their medication, stuff like that. And creating value, real world value like that, helps shape your mindset of how to build a product, how to go from 0 to 1. And who knows, one day you might be running your own startup, and we on this panel to share and create valuable jobs. Yeah, I guess if we are thinking about being a startup, we're going to do that instead.
Thank you, Jianjie. Lastly, could you have Shi Hua for your concluding remarks?
I think I'm not as technical as the two speakers who have just shared. I'm just a random HR person that is in the tech industry. Okay, but I guess for me, as a campus recruiter for a while, right? So I think a lot of the fresh grads or like people early in their careers, they are a bit afraid to make decisions. Like what is considered a good decision, right? You're a bit more scared to like, okay, oh, what about that? What about this? What if I do that? I think don't think so much into that, I think what's more important is to really harness your own skill sets, because with that, right, you're able to have options. And that's where, right, with options, then you're able to sort of like know, okay, what to do. And then you can start to deciding like what Jinjie said, you then know within these options, maybe there's some things that you don't like. Yeah, then that will help you. So I think like always like brush up on your own skills, work on yourself first, gain more knowledge. With more knowledge, with more skills, then you have more options. And then, with more options, it comes like better knowledge into certain things, and then you're able to sort of like make better decisions, and then you're able to become like more successful in life, right? But it all starts with building up yourself first. So I think that's more important rather to worry about like the future, what's going to happen. Yeah. So as long as you build yourself from the ground up with all the skills that you want to have, I'm sure it will lead you somewhere. So all the best, everybody.
Thank you, Shi Hua. Right, so we really love to thank all our 3 recruiters and hiring managers, right? Firstly, Jian Tie from Robin, Alwin from OGP, as well as Shi Hua from Shopee. Thank you all for taking time off your busy schedules to join us, right? I'm sure the students have benefited a lot, I myself too. So perhaps we could see you all next year as well. All right, so for y'all may take your leave, right? I'm sorry for running over time, but for students, please stay for a while if you could, okay? Because we will have to talk about the assignments or homework, right? All right. So for students, right, you have your homework, which is due on Sunday, 1st of June, right? So for students who have submitted fewer than 4 questions last week, you will be excluded from the course. So please drop us an email at this email address with a valid reason to be re-included. Okay, so as you know, we have learned a lot about resume and resume writing. So please upload your resume into Cosmology as well as the tech interview handbook, right? The link will be in the next slide. This resume will be peer reviewed by classmates, all right, alumni, TA, seniors in the subsequent week. So please make it count, because you could also use it, right, for your first internship application and so on. Also, try to complete, please complete 6 out of 7 lead code questions on Cosmology. All these are due on 1st of June 2025, Sunday 2359. Right, when you proceed to the tech interview handbook, right, this is what you will see. I'm not sure if I can make this screen, right? So you would upload your resume here, as well as include this header, tips 25, right, into the title, right? Please read the submission guidelines. Ensure that you do not divulge any of your personal particulars like handphone number, address, mailing address, right? But please do include details about other details that you would include in a proper resume, right? So proofread your resumes, because this will be reviewed by your seniors, your peers in the later weeks. Okay, so this is an example of what you will see in the following weeks, where reviews will be given to your resume and you could improve from there. All right, so with that, we have come to the end of the lecture 2. Sorry for running over time. And I will see you all next week. If you all have any questions, please just ask in the chat.